Thank you, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm James Chong. I'm the chairman of the board for Advancis USA, and I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area in the U.S. And today, I'm going to be talking about disruptive changes that have really entered the control room industry and things that really used to be something that we were hoping to do, which are now really possible. And so, using open integration platforms, I'm going to take you through a little bit of the journey in terms of the control room applications, but also where the industry right now is at and some of the capabilities that I hope will be fairly intriguing to all of you. I've had a background in security for quite some time, and also in terms of the control room area. I helped to actually bring in a category called PSIM over a decade ago, and there's been a lot of evolution from that. And so, using some of my personal background as well as what I see in the industry that's happening, I wanted to kind of take you through a little bit of what we're covering today in terms of the management solutions and also the technology. So, as some of you have already seen the synopsis, we're going to, give you a little bit of understanding of the control room industry, some of the things that drove security management and PSIM and CSIM kind of acronyms and technologies, and look at some of the open integration that's now possible, and then take a closer look at the architecture and the ecosystem, and then walk you through some of the advantages and the overview. And hopefully, we'll wrap up with some questions as well, but I'll do a little quick summary for you at the end. So this is kind of the landscape. In the control room area and control centers, you've got multiple disparate applications, that does safety, security, also, incorporating the standard operating procedures depending on what's happening with the event or incidents. You also got control centers that are now tying in smart buildings like building management systems, automation systems. Some of these are extending out to the IoT. Also, in terms of communications, obviously, because control centers are all about managing the incidents and really communicating in bi-directional methods. Software applications and mobile apps, pretty much everything today has some connectivity to smartphones and smart applications. And so that's obviously another part of the control center arena. And then IT and infrastructure, a lot of the cybersecurity pieces are now coming into play. And also the infrastructure in terms of your network, your bandwidth, your storage. And then one, big area we're going to talk about a lot today is also the third-party integration. Because anytime you want to really look at control centers, the more unified and integrated that is, the better outcomes you're going to be able to achieve. And this is something that's been a challenge for decades, not just in the security and safety industry, but in multiple industries across the network. And then the mapping and GIS is another very important factor. Anytime you have an incident, you need to know where it's happening, what are some of the peripherals, what are some other kind of connectivities to that location, and even the moving assets of people, vehicles, and other activities. And then, the performance data is another critical KPI now. No management wants to simply know what happened. They want to know what can we have done differently? Where are some of the metrics? How fast did we respond? Or maybe how slow? And so, this is the ecosystem that I think most of you can appreciate in terms of the control centers and the command centers, even in different markets across the industries. So, what the integration and some of these needs are driving in terms of solutions. These are some of the basic areas that safety and security people and folks that are operating these types of environments are looking to do. Bringing together video from other kind of perimeter and intrusion detection systems, all of these alarms, some of these orange spots or the blue spots that you see. In terms of the building side, you also have the smart buildings, the HVACs, the building automation systems, the power, utility. All of this is now generating data and using energy. And so, as we look at requirements, these are how we can bring this together more cohesively. And then the third part, that I mentioned earlier is the communication. So, having the mobile technologies and the ability to communicate, not just when you're inside of a center, but even outside, maybe the guards and other public safety responders, and, having that collaboration to manage whatever is happening that your particular operations center may be interested in. And so these are the needs and requirements that I think, again, many of you are familiar with. And so to address this need and to create the solution, there's been some challenges that were presented. And so I've just wanted to use a little bit of graphics here to give you that lay of the land. So in terms of these devices we just talked about, these sensors, these subsystems, they all originate somewhere in the field, whether it's inside the building, outside the building, in stadiums, airports, everywhere. And so the field levels then roll up to some type of a application server where these types of data are now being collected. And this introduces a lot of complexity because you've got multiple silos and things that are now proprietary. And so in order to manage this, you also have certain applications that sit on top of these systems and subsystems, devices, sensors. And so, now you're multiplying a little bit of that complexity because you're needing to control things at the sort of the base layers, bringing that up to a server level, and then at the application level. And so ultimately, the weakest link is really being able to see all this, across the enterprise where a person or a team needs to be able to solve that particular problem. Well, this is where that single pane of glass, the common operating picture, this is where the technologies that the industry response kind of came to being. So you had security management systems that used to do primarily the alarm management, doors, contacts, window breaks, etc. And then you had the video management system software players. The VMSs became a little smarter, right? They added some more custom integration. Maybe they'll tie a door to a camera. And then the PSIM came into being. So back in 2006, I introduced the term PSIM to the security market. It was a category that did not exist at that time because software was actually fairly new into the primarily hardware physical security industry. And so PSIM, really the concept was to give you that unified view in converting data, massive amounts of data, into meaningful and actionable information. That sort of evolved into also called CSIM, where cybersecurity and IT security started to converge. And so you got IT, physical, electronic, all kind of coming together. And so again, the industry's response was, how do we manage all of these things inside of a control center? And so let's try to build a solution or create an offering to the market. We even had things like PSIM Plus, where you could do more things outside of the security arena. And so the outcome of this, and some of you may be laughing at this, is that we truly had a alphabet soup. And this is really about all of these things, that we are now trying to incorporate to bring this type of a solution to the control room industry. And so at the very inner circle at the bottom, you have that alarm management system, that kind of evolved into that more of a situational awareness need. And then on top of that, even computer-aided dispatch manufacturers, they were trying to do integration. And so this is where, IT security, as well as the command centers and sort of the computer-aided dispatch started to also provide some type of solutions. And then that also elevated itself even more with more sensors, more capabilities. And then the command and control and sort of the C3 area really was kind of the equivalent in the military side to what PSIM was being introduced as. And again, these were applications, right, that we as an industry were building to solve this fairly sizable problem where you have all of these silos, all of these technologies, but yet you always had that one individual or that one team that had to manage everything that was happening in the enterprise. And so, again, as this started to evolve, we then started to realize that, building on top of existing applications was not going to be scalable beyond a certain degree. And so, the last piece that I put on that outer circle is that IoT. The definition of IoT is connectivity of sensors, devices, systems, subsystems, all to the cloud. And right now, there's sort of the analysts that have been sort of talking about this for the last few years say about 35 to 50 billion objects are connected to the cloud. And this is everything from your Fitbits to your refrigerators to your cameras, and everything in between. So to address this, this alphabet soup, and also a little bit of a Frankenstein because you're building on top of existing applications, it really created a big challenge and that's really where I think some of the shortcomings of PSIMs to CSIMs to other capabilities, and even in the C4ISR industry, really started to hit the wall. And really, one of the things that has happened very recently is a new architecture. And this is something that I'm very excited about because it's really the first solution that I've seen that truly can help us to address this ongoing problem that we've been trying to solve as an industry for a couple of decades or even longer. And so this is really what I call the open integration platform. And so what this means, I'm going to give you a little bit more details on the following slides, but basically what this does is opens up the core and creates a true operating platform, right? A open operating platform, similar to your Microsoft, Windows applications running on top of your Windows OS. And so without having that OS underneath, it's very hard for you to tie all the applications together. Well, one company called Advancis that has done this is really changing how you really look at doing this type of enterprise applications. And so this has everything from custom built applications to having some capabilities for interfaces and even some features and functions that you can add as scripts. So just to give you a little bit of a better sense of what we're talking about, this is sort of how you can now look at adding this type of interface into an existing environment or to a new control center environment. So it's truly a paradigm shift because now with this open integration platform, you as a third party and not as the software vendor, you can actually add interfaces using the same API core and the SDKs and same ones that the actual manufacturer's developers would be using in order to extend the product. And so this includes things like new adapters or connectors or interfaces. If you have a new IoT device, you can use the same SDK and that will actually talk to the same core and not just another application. So you don't have to be an expert in the proprietary control center application in order to add features, add interfaces, add more capabilities. What this is truly a transformation because really the limitations of PSIMs and other kind of the traditional integration platforms have been is that because you built it on an existing application, whether it's a VMS application, access control application, computer dispatch application, or a C4 application, you had to build on top of that application. Now, this has flipped where the core is that operating platform. And so not only providing that operating platform, but you also have the communication, the APIs that speak the same language. And so you as a third party have the ability to consistently add things that'll be part of the capabilities and new features that are part of this open standard. So it's like building an app on the Apple App Store, right? So third parties can build apps now and you can publish those. Same thing here. Inside the control center environment, you basically have that same capability. This is where the open integration platform really starts to shine, because all of these circles, this circle of applications, that I talked about just a few minutes ago, you're now connecting those using the same core, right? The same open platform. So what that means is that the extendability of this is not limited to one vendor manufacturer, because that platform is also available to the market. And so, all of these names here, plus many more, as you want to add the capabilities, you as an integrator or even the customer have the ability to do that. This is a true game changer. This is going to really transform, I think, the industry and help us to accelerate actually innovation in this industry. I think many of you would agree the security industry has been a dinosaur. Fire and safety, security, these are things where you got long tooth, a lot of technologies that's been used, for decades. And some of the software code in many of these applications are 10, 20 years old. This is a brand new platform. And this is where you have the ability now to really help push and move the industry in a more positive direction. So, to do this, what are some of the value adds for the players, right? So I think integrators play a huge role in this market in particular, because you're really helping to solve a problem for a customer. And so now with this open integration platform, you can actually create your own extendable user interface and user experience. You had to depend on previously of another software company to deliver. Now you actually can do that. You can really drive that solution value. So you can add more value if you're a more capable integrator that has an expertise in that vertical. You can now bring that into the picture that you were hamstrung on before, because you had to rely on somebody else to help you to do that. Unlimited flexibility. There's some examples that I'll show you here. This kind of extendability is something that's, I think, very powerful, because every integrator has some unique capabilities as well. And so now you can incorporate that, add more value, deliver that to the customer and to the market. And then being truly open and scalable, that there's no sort of a hard-coded piece, right, in that open integration platform. Everything has been multi-pronged and multi-threaded. And so it's no longer a monolithic code, but a much more distributed code, just like that circle example. And then also in terms of intelligent workflows and SOPs, you can continue to do that. Some of the applications are really good at providing that. Well, you can continue to do that as well. And then things are tailored. Whether you're speaking to a hospital, they're going to be similar, but different than other areas, right? So office facilities, parking garages, theaters, stadiums, they all have differences. And so now you as a participant in that particular market, you can actually deliver something that's going to mean a lot more. So if you're running SOCs or GSOCs or campus environments, having this open integration platform, having that ability, you can now create things like this, where you have the ability to see all of the IoT devices, all of the security sensors in the proper way that makes sense to the operators in that center. You might be running control rooms for towers, high rises, buildings. You can control all of those, subsystems, HVACs to energy monitoring systems. Those are, again, things that you can bring to the market. And these are the capabilities that open integration will give to you. I just already showed you this one, like a cargo ship or a vessel, cruise ship. You have the ability to bring this to now the operations center, where they understand what they're looking at, right? It's not going through just directories of trees of cameras and sensors. It's really giving them that situational awareness that makes sense for that industry. So essentially, the open integration platform gives you that ability to create those verticalized, unlimited market-specific applications. Some of these are, mentioned here. There's a lot more that are subgroups of this. But again, in my experience of working with a lot of these control centers and operation centers all over the world, everyone has some unique requirements. And now, with this kind of capability that the market has access to, I think we're going to see the next evolution and really that transformation and that paradigm shift in terms of being more proprietary. Even though we were marketing it as being open, it was still proprietary because you're building on top of an existing application to truly an open platform that allows you to really put your fingerprints on that. So just to kind of start wrapping up for us here, in terms of what's future possibilities and what are some of the opportunities that we see? Well, certainly IoT is something that I believe is going to be here and is going to be kind of the future, right? In terms of the amount of connectivities to different types of systems and sensors. Also, the use of AI. Artificial intelligence comes in many shapes and forms. And we're hearing more about that every day. Whether it's on the stock market or whether it's in corporate enterprise, AI is going to help us to really filter and to make sense of a lot of the data that's hidden underneath. VR as well as AR as well as XR, the reality pieces where you can really start to incorporate visuals to give that better, more holistic view. Big data analytics, this is something that's been happening over the 10 years. It's even more so, more critical now because that's really how you present your KPIs and also your dashboarding. And having that ML and AI and video analytics capabilities. I mentioned video because again, that's the bandwidth hog, as you all know, and that part of it, requires you to have analytics and machine learning capabilities to again take advantage of that. And then the 3D, 2D, also the mapping and visualization, and then the cyber and converged security. I think this is another part of where the future is headed. More and more, there are threats that we see every day, even in practical life, and not just in control centers. And so awareness as well as the ability to mitigate this is going to be very important. And then the mobile apps, I think everyone is fully aware that everything is getting smaller and more portable. And so I think this is, again, where the open platform can really help you to continue to take that roadmap to the next level. And then, just some of the benefits, I think you probably picked up a lot of this, is that there's obviously operational efficiencies. Things that used to be a lot harder is now going to be a lot easier. Ability to comply to different regulations, different algorithms and compliances. You have that ability now. You can tailor that. And then increasing your situational awareness, as well as even the reduced liability. Security is all about risk. You don't just put a camera out there because you like to see something. It's really about reducing the risk to your brand, your employees, and your assets. And then the collaboration, that's very important for any control center and any of these solutions to be successful. And then obviously cost savings that, I think the traditional PSIMs and others have been sort of struggling because I think the go-to-market has been so expensive. So the best way that I explain that is that because it's a project rather than a product, right? And so when you try to create something on top of an existing app, you're going to get a project, and that's usually time-consuming, very expensive. Now that you have something like an open platform, you can actually create your, products that are based on the same standards. Again, this is where the industry talked about going. It's now actually here. And this is, I think, why I chose to kind of share this information with the market right now, because I think this is one of the game changers in our industry. So to summarize, I think you need to focus on the platform, rather than the applications. You also need to really look at kind of the app store approach where you cannot scale no matter how big of a company you are or a big organization if you have to do it yourself. You have to allow third parties and others to be able to do that. And that does take some trust as well as some confidence where you're kind of sharing that knowledge and information with the industry, sometimes even your competitors. And so the ability to customize your experience. I think our industry also sometimes forgets the most important person is the person sitting at that chair. So creating that ability to get that information to the right hands in the right shape and form And then automating, data is going to be even more overload as we go. So you have to automate. And then the visualization is key. We make decisions a lot. Video's worth 1,000 words, and 1,000 pictures, and pictures worth 1,000 words. And so again, we got to continue to understand that as a key element. And then being secure and reliable, right? So as we grow, as your enterprise grows, more sites, more cities, more locations, that's key. And then truly being open, scalable, and extendable. So I think, this is almost my challenge to the industry is that, if you have something that can really be shared across different, enterprises as well as different industries, I think more we can share that knowledge, we can help the world become safer and better. And so, want to just kind of thank you all for your attention. I'd be happy to take some questions, but like to turn back the time to our hosts.
Hi, James. It's great to have you here talking to us about control room innovations. I just had a couple of questions to go through regarding your session, if that's okay with you.
Sure, absolutely.
So, as this is the first time you're presenting at Security Fire Live, could you tell us why you wanted to be here with us today?
Well, I think similar to kind of how I ended the presentation, I think we can all give back to the industry that, we've taken a lot of benefits from. And so I think whenever you have something really, great to share, I think it's important for us to do that. And I thought your platform could maybe, be an avenue to share a little bit of the insight to the audience. And so for me, it was more educational, but also kind of sharing, things that I think could benefit others as well.
Well, we really appreciate you being here, and it's great to have you. So just to go back to your presentation a little bit, so we're seeing a lot of this integration of not just cloud technology, but also the edge into the control room environment. Do you think an integrated or a multi-layered approach is more efficient for a control room?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges of a control room is that it's ever changing and ever evolving, right? So you can't just kind of put a one size fits all, especially in the beginning, because you really don't know where the future is headed, especially with the technology transforming now, not even in 18 months, which used to be lightning fast, but like in 3 to 9 months, right? And so the acceleration of things, I think, makes it so that you have to take a incremental, multi-threaded, layered approach, because if you try to jump too far ahead too quickly, then you may have to backtrack that. And so I think incremental and also taking it as a multi-threaded approach is definitely the way to go. And I think, again, every control center manager operator will tell you what they envisioned or thought last year is definitely not the same this year. And so I think that's another good practice and best practices that I've seen.
Well, thanks, James. I really appreciate your time here and taking
Sure.
taking the time out of your day to speak to us, not for your just presentation, but also for the Q&A at the end. If anybody has any further questions, you can reach out directly to James on the platform and find out a little bit more. Thank you.